Bună dimineața! Andrei, ai văzut raportul de azi?
Wait, how am I understanding this? A few years ago, I didn't know a single word of Romanian. And yet today I can hold conversations, read, listen and communicate at roughly an A2 level. And the craziest part? A big part of this journey happened through this little green owl. For the last 1020 days, I've used Duolingo almost every day. But here's the weird thing. The biggest thing that improved my Romanian wasn't Duolingo. So does Duolingo actually work? After more than 1000 days, I think I finally have the answer. But before we get there, you need to know how this journey started. Before Duolingo. Before Romania. Before classes. Before everything. I became obsessed with pronunciation. Most people start a language by learning words. I started by learning sounds. I spent weeks understanding the Romanian alphabet. The vowels. The consonants. How words should actually sound. At the time it felt slow. But looking back, it gave me a massive head start. When I arrived in Romania, people would often compliment my accent. Some even assumed I spoke more Romanian than I actually did. And I genuinely believe that happened because I focused so heavily on pronunciation from day one. It's one of the most underrated things a beginner can do. Eventually, I moved to Duolingo. And this is where my journey became different from most people. Because my goal was never to finish the course. In fact, after more than 1000 days, I still haven't finished it. I fail lessons. I make mistakes. I lose hearts. Constantly. And honestly, I don't care. Because I was never chasing completion. I was chasing exposure. Most of my sessions were fast. Very fast. If I had to estimate, 80% of the time I was simply moving quickly through exercises. Only about 20% of the time was spent slowing down and studying the theory behind what I was seeing. And surprisingly, that worked. Because Duolingo's greatest strength isn't teaching everything. Its greatest strength is making sure you interact with the language every single day. Even when you're tired. Even when you're busy. Even when you don't feel like studying. And after enough repetitions, something strange starts happening. You begin recognizing things you've never consciously learned. Words start looking familiar. Grammar starts feeling familiar. Patterns start appearing everywhere. The language slowly becomes part of your subconscious. And that becomes incredibly powerful later. Because eventually, I got the chance to test it. For 6 months, I lived in Romania. And this changed everything. Suddenly Romanian wasn't an app anymore. It was everywhere. On the streets. In shops. In conversations. On television. In music. On signs. In everyday life. And most importantly, I couldn't always rely on English. Which meant I was forced to use Romanian. And that's where real growth started happening. I also attended Romanian language classes. I had exams, assignments, academic responsibilities. All of it became language practice. And this is probably the biggest lesson from my entire journey. The brain learns incredibly fast when it has no choice. The more you are forced to understand, the more you are forced to communicate, the faster everything develops. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. But it's unbelievably effective. There is one moment every language learner dreams about. And eventually it happened to me too. One day I realized I was understanding conversations around me. Not perfectly. Not every word. But enough. Enough to follow what people were saying. Enough to understand the context. Enough to know what was happening. And the weirdest part? I couldn't even explain how. There were words I didn't know. Sentences I couldn't fully translate. Yet somehow, I understood. The brain had spent months absorbing patterns. Absorbing sounds. Absorbing context. And suddenly it all started connecting together. It's honestly one of the most rewarding feelings I've ever experienced. And nothing else in language learning comes close. Eventually the 6 months ended. and I returned home. The challenge now was different. How do you keep learning when immersion disappears? So I tried to bring Romania home with me. I continued reading Romanian. I brought books back. I kept my phone entirely in Romanian. For almost a year. Every setting, every notification, every menu, everything. And surprisingly, it worked. Not because it taught me huge amounts of new vocabulary, but because it kept me connected to the language. Every single day. And of course, the Duolingo streak continued. More recently, I started adding another tool. Conversation practice with AI. Because one of the biggest losses after leaving Romania was the lack of regular speaking practice. AI became a way of recreating part of that environment. A way to continue speaking, making mistakes, building sentences, thinking naturally in Romanian. Nothing replaces real immersion. But if you can't live in the country, regular conversation is probably the next best thing. Final verdict. So, after 10-20 days, is Duolingo legit? Yes. Absolutely. But not in the way most people think. Duolingo didn't teach me Romanian by itself. Romania didn't teach me Romanian by itself. Classes didn't teach me Romanian by themselves. No single thing did. What Duolingo did was keep Romanian alive every single day. Long enough for all the other experiences to compound. Long enough for immersion to work. Long enough for conversations to happen. Long enough for the language to become familiar. The streak wasn't the reason I learned Romanian. The streak was the reason I never stopped.
1, 2, 3, 4.